Hi, Annie here, and I'm back with another video today, and this is part of like my November kind of extravaganza where I'm trying to put a new video every Monday through Friday. I did have a giveaway from the very start of this month, so I'll link the video below if you're interested in that, but otherwise I'm going to get on with it. This is the genre tag. I saw Bluray Benn do it, and he mentioned when we were chatting in the comments that, you know, I should do it as well, so I thought I would. It took me a bit of time, but I have gotten around to filming it. So the first category is action, and for that I have picked Boomtown. This movie is a kind of classic film, and it stars Spencer Tracy and Clark Gable, as well as Claudette Colbert and Hedy Lamarr. It is set on the Wild West frontier. It's two guy friends that kind of head west to make their fortune, and they get into the oil business, and it's not like your typical action like superhero movie, but it is quite kind of quickly paced, and there are some great stunts in it as well, as far as like big explosions and that kind of thing. I really like this one. This wasn't one I grew up watching. This was one I found probably in the past 5 or so years. It was a nice surprise, and I really like it, and yeah. So I'll just keep going here. And the next category is adventure, and for that I've picked The Adventures of Robin Hood. Again, this is a more atypical choice for adventure, but they're genres that I'll watch movies in that, but I don't tend to feel like desperately attached to those films. So these are all movies that kind of, you know, fit in that genre, or loosely fit in that genre, but also are movies that I kind of really like and feel quite connected to, or that, you know, really mean something to me. So that's kind of been my way I've been choosing some of these as well. So the next category is animation or family, and that's a tough category for me. I do enjoy kind of a good family movie, or you know, a fair bit of animation, although that's not probably an area I'm as fluent in. But for my animation / family pick, I chose Mary Poppins, which will come as no surprise for people that have been watching me for a while. I mention this movie kind of every time family movie or those kind of things come up. And the other one I chose for this is The Parent Trap, because those are two films that I cannot kind of I can never choose which one's my favorite. It really depends on my mood and kind of what's been going on in life, but they both mean a lot, and those are both kind of two of my favorite family films. So the next category is comedy, and for this I do have a more modern film in the shape of Hot Fuzz. This is a movie that I was really shocked by how much I laughed during it, like laugh out loud, like even when I was sitting on my own, just alone in my room when I was watching it on TV for the first time. And every time I watch it, I do really laugh. Like there's just parts of it that just get me, and it's not necessarily the same parts every time, but I do always really enjoy this one. And these three guys with Edgar Wright have done kind of a trilogy, or, you know, they've done quite a few movies together. This is definitely my favorite. I do like Paul, and I haven't seen World's End yet, which I'm really wanting to. I just haven't kind of got around to picking it up yet, but this is definitely my favorite of kind of the first three that they worked on together. And yeah, just really enjoy that one. Like I said, just like proper like cry laughing during it. The other one I picked for that was Holiday. This is a kind of screwball comedy from the 30s. I want to check this just a second because I'm pretty sure it's the 30s. Yeah, 38. And it stars Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. I know they're better known kind of screwball comedy as Bringing Up Baby, but for me this is my kind of favorite of those two, but overall quite a comedy favorite for me. Just, you know, just hits a slightly different sensibility. I like the Katharine Hepburn character better in this one. So she just seems to have a bit more to her, you know, bit less. It's very wacky, but it's just wacky in a slightly different way than Bringing Up Baby. Although I think if you liked Bringing Up Baby and you like those kind of screwball and fast-paced comedies, you'll like this one as well. And for the next category, it's drama, and the first one I don't have a physical copy of, and that is the movie 50/50, starring Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's a more recent one as well. It deals with two friends, well, more than that, but the main two are two friends and what happens when one of them gets cancer. It's a, you know, quite a serious movie, and it is a dramatic movie, I would say, but it does have some really funny bits to it. It feels really honest and just a really more complex portrayal of that time in somebody's life. And I know that that was something that they really worked hard to kind of capture, that it's not all doom and gloom, but that it is, you know, there's funny moments and there's things that just happen that are inherently funny when you're dealing with those kind of things, but also there is, like, you know, kind of a very scary and, you know, real life, literally life and death thing going on at the same time as well. So that's a movie I really like, and if you haven't seen it, I would recommend going out and watching it, because I think even if you don't have somebody that is close to you that has either passed from cancer or that has cancer or anything like this, I think that it's kind of one of those movies that is just very well done and helps maybe understand other people better. So the other one for that, again, not a surprise for people that have been watching me for a while, is A Star is Born. This is the Judy Garland edition. It gets me every time. Definitely a drama, probably borders on melodrama or full-on melodrama, but this one I always cry while watching it. It's a long film, very, very good, and I've talked about it in other videos, so I won't ramble on here. The next category is fantasy, and my first choice for that one would be A Matter of Life or Death, which starred David Niven and was a Michael Powell Emmett Pressburger film, and it's a beautiful, beautiful film. I believe it was either the first or one of the first films that David Niven filmed after the war had ended. It is about a flyer during the war, and he's kind of in a, you know, in a bad situation, and he being shot down over the channel, and kind of it unfolds from there. It is like very kind of, it is a deep one in the sense that it is tackling, you know, quite intense subject matter, and, you know, it's not called A Matter of Life or Death for anything, but it does definitely have a fantasy element to it. It's a really good film, and I love the Michael Powell and Emmett Pressburger films, but that is definitely kind of one of my top three. The other one one of the other ones I wanted to mention for fantasy was these Busby Berkeley films. Just in general, Busby Berkeley, there's definitely like a fantastical element, not in your kind of, you know, witches and wizards element of movies, but just the kind of production and the dream sequences, the crazy dancing and imagery that is throughout them all. They're just beautiful films, but I think that outside of musicals, I think you'd almost have to put them in kind of a fantasy category, because they are quite over the top when it comes to those numbers. The other one, of course, I'll mention is Harry Potter. These are films I do really like. The first two are probably my favorite. I really like the early books. I like the later books as well. You know, they're just different. The early movies, though, are probably definitely my favorite. And I think it's probably because the books were shorter, so that more of the book kind of made it into the movie. And the next category here is musicals. I've talked a lot about musicals kind of over the summer and autumn, so I won't talk too much. These are some of my favorite ones. Here is White Christmas, Meet Me in St. Louis, The Wizard of Oz, Funny Face, and Bells Are Ringing. If you love musicals as well, I will link my musicals collection, and I also did a few other videos around musicals, like I said, over the summer. So if you are interested in that, the link will be below for the playlist of all those videos. And the next films I have for the next category I have here, which is romance, and my one pick for that was Random Harvest. This was directed by Mervyn LeRoy and starred Ronald Colman and Greer Garson. It's a black and white film, quite classic. It is a kind of plot line that you've seen mimicked many times before in TV shows. It's kind of the bonk on the head and all is forgotten, and then bonk on the head and all is remembered. You know, one of my favorite episodes of Remington Steele includes this kind of premise, but it's been used in a lot of different TV shows, from sitcoms to dramas. But it is a melodrama. It is set post-war. So it does deal with a shell-shocked soldier coming home after World War I. Of course, it was more done in the, oh, again, I'm just going to check the date because I want to, it was filmed in 1942, so kind of, you know, during World War II, but it was dealing with World War I. And it is, whoop, just clocked myself in the head there. It is dealing with that kind of fragile mental state and memory of what is this woman's husband, and she kind of goes along and pretends she is just his secretary because she doesn't want to traumatize him further. It is a beautiful film, although, you know, in the realm of like not being completely believable because of kind of numerous things that happen throughout it, but it is a beautiful film, and if you can suspend that disbelief for a moment and look at it in the kind of, you know, even now, but also in the context of the era when it was made and what that might have meant, I think there's a lot of different elements of interest there. And the other one I wanted to choose for romance, because I love this film, is Love Affair, and this is Warren Beatty and Annette Bening. There's been many kind of An Affair to Remember style movies over the years. I love the Cary Grant one, but I think this is my favorite. I love Annette Bening in this, and for me, this just is a really perfect kind of love story movie. The mystery and crime section, you know, this is Noirvember that I'm doing here, so there's lots of other kind of mystery crime movies I'm going to be talking about this month, but I will quickly, Sunset Boulevard here, which again, this is kind of featuring prominently throughout the month in a few different videos. And then the other movie I wanted to mention, and this is just a set, but it's in here, is They Made Me a Criminal, and that is John Garfield and Anne Sheridan and Claude Rains. And it was, again, it was directed actually by Busby Berkeley, but it was not a musical. It was a kind of noir-ish, definitely a crime story. John Garfield, who plays a boxer and kind of a hard drinking, you know, kind of a, you know, alcoholic. So he is framed for murder, and he goes on the run, and he hides out at a farm, and that all starts to get threatened when kind of other things go into place and the local kind of boxing stuff is being established. The other one I should mention, which again I'm mentioning in other places throughout this month, is Double Indemnity. That is definitely one of my favorite kind of crime mystery films, so I shouldn't like let that pass when I'm doing the genre tag without mentioning that one. For sci-fi, I've got a couple. Again, I know I'm horrible at sorting through these, but I want to mention Metropolis, which is Fritz Lang in 1927. Really interesting kind of, probably I'm guessing one of the early sci-fis, but in all honesty, I don't know. That's just a movie I've watched, but not a movie I like know a great deal of history about. And the other one I wanted to mention, again, not one that I know a terrible amount about, but one that I've watched and enjoyed, is The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is, they're both just kind of interesting takes and on that genre, and also I think, you know, when factored into kind of the historical context of both the movies, but also of the era they were made in. The Day the Earth Stood Still was directed by Robert Wise, who also, or Wise, not sure on that one, who also ended up directing The Sound of Music and had worked with like Orson Welles and as a editor before kind of going off and doing more directing on his own. So it's an interesting film, and Robert Wise is definitely somebody that does a lot of kind of out of decade storytelling as far as like the stories from a different time, but he makes it fit the era it's being made in the story it's telling. So those are the two I'll mention there. Like I said, that's not a genre I watch a huge number of films from, just not one that I've ever gotten like deep into. The next category is thriller, and I had a really hard time between this and the crime drama. Some of them just seemed hard to sort out, and also it's a kind of a favorite genre of movie for me. So I'm going to mention pretty much any Hitchcock, but my two favorite for this category would be Strangers on a Train and North by Northwest. Those are just two thriller type films, probably more suspense, but I just was calling suspense thriller there because there wasn't a suspense category. And then Charade is another one. This is again Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. filmed kind of in that same area. I believe it was, what was it, the 1960, just a second here, 1963. This really plays like a Hitchcock, but isn't a Hitchcock, but it does have, it's the best Hitchcock didn't make, if that's or the best Hitchcock film, and then Hitchcock happened to not direct it, I guess is a better way of putting it. Does really have that feel. It's kind of an amazing story, lots of familiar faces in the James Coburn, and oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to, I'm drawing blanks on names today for some, oh, Walter Matthau's in this as well. It's a really good film. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that this be kind of one of the handful that you maybe take away from this. And the other one for thriller I wanted to mention was Double Jeopardy. I really loved The Usual Suspects as well. I haven't seen that for ages, as the same with Double Jeopardy, but those are both ones that really kind of stuck with me. Double Jeopardy especially, so I really, like I said, I haven't watched it probably in 10 years, at least 10 years, but it's one that kind of like the ending especially, like all the way through, your heart's really like pounding as you watch at different places, but especially the end, it's just like it drops out from under you, and that's like probably what I remember most about that movie, is that like at the end. So anyway, that's one that I probably should look up and see about watching again, because it really did have that effect on me, but I really want to mention that for that category.